Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Daily Deuce. I'm Gary Graves from just outside Louisville, Kentucky, where the sun is just starting to set on a nice pre-spring day. John, how are you doing back there in Maryland?
Hey, Gary, I'm gonna tell you something. First, hello, man. How you doing? Great to see you. Great to have everybody listening to us again today. It is about 60 degrees here. Sun is shining, and the sun's not gonna go down probably till about, I guess, about 7:30, 7:30 this evening. Good weather. And just think, on Saturday here, it was 50-mile-an-hour winds with snow and rain.
Yep.
So
that's March weather for you. That's March Madness weather style.
March Madness. And Gary, we'd be remiss if we didn't say hello to our main man, the producer, the traffic cop, John Pitt.
Yep. The calm amidst the madness. John Pitt, how are you?
Doing good. Good to see you guys. Busy week in sports. I don't know if we can even get to it all.
If this were a buffet line, I think there are a couple of pans that me and John would have to pass, and that's very hard for both of us.
Gary, on a buffet line, I'm not passing up anything.
John, remember, we're of a certain age. It's about cholesterol and diabetes, and both of which we have to avoid. So, of course, we can gorge on sports all day if we wanted to, but we only have a certain amount of time before the tour bus leaves us. So let's get right to it. Speaking of March Madness, the field has been selected, 68 teams, all the matchups are set. We get started tomorrow night, as early as tomorrow night. So I guess, God, where to start? Okay, let's go with the number one seeds. Gonzaga, Arizona, Baylor, and
Kansas.
And Kansas. Did the NCAA tournament committee get it right?
I'd say they did. Arizona, Gonzaga, and Kansas are hands down, three top seeds. That fourth one, you could go with Baylor. You could make an argument to move Tennessee up to that one because of how they finished up. You can make an argument for the overall work that Purdue had to put Purdue in that number one seed. But I think overall they got it right. I think it's going to be an exciting tournament. I see some things here, some future matchups that can be really interesting. There's a special thing that could happen that would interest you down in Kentucky, but they're going to be playing in Indiana if things work out right with Kentucky and Murray State.
Oh, I can't wait for that one. And John, I am so happy that you mentioned that because these two schools have never played. Amazingly, they have never played, and they could face off in the second round in Indianapolis. Of course, I'm going to be up there this weekend for that. It's going to be Big Blue Nation because they travel well. And by the same token, it's going to be Big Orange Nation. I mean, the Volunteer Nation, they're going to turn out there. So as my colleague and I were discussing today, that if the town was painted red for the college football championship game, between Alabama and Georgia, this one it's going to be blue and orange, not quite Florida blue and orange, but it's going to be deep blue. It's going to be a deep orange because you're talking about two fan bases that travel well. And you mentioned about Tennessee, being moved up. I'm a little surprised that they got a number 3 seeding. I thought they deserved a number 2. Maybe would have dropped Kentucky maybe to number 3. And I know that sounds like sacrilege here, but Tennessee, I mean, we said this a couple weeks ago. They were the only team to beat all 3 of the other teams that finished in the top 4. They beat Kentucky 2 out of 3 times, including the SEC tournament. They beat Auburn. They beat Arkansas. Arkansas's collapse in the tournament was a little surprising to me, but not that surprising because Buzz Williams, he's got a team there. He's got a team at Texas A&M, and just looking at the looking at the bracket, I'm surprised that Texas A&M was not rewarded for what they did in the tournament and getting as far as they did. That's my one disappointment.
I could see Texas A&M deserving to get in. Also, I could see Wake Forest deserving to get in. And I'm going to say this to you, Gary. I understand how things work, but I just don't think it's really a good situation that Iona did not get in. I understand why. They're playing in a smaller conference, and the bid goes to the team that wins the conference tournament instead of the regular season tournament. This is the reason why sometimes I think it's more important to take the regular season champion than the conference champion. They're getting St. Peter's, all the respect in the world to them for winning the conference tournament, but the better representation would have been Iona. And I'm just going to say this. I know we weren't going to talk about this today. I know we're not, but just let me just say this. If I'm the University of Maryland right now, I am at Rick Pitino's door explaining to him how he got the wrong deal. He got a raw deal. And if he comes to Maryland, he'll be in the Big Ten. And when he wins the Big Ten and loses in the first round of the conference tournament, he'll still get in the tournament.
John, wait a minute. Hold it. At first, I was beating the drum for you since you couldn't do it yourself for Rick Pitino. How did he get a raw deal anywhere? How did he get a raw deal at Louisville? Tell me.
No, Gary, I'm not talking about overall. I'm talking about a raw deal with this tournament with Iona. Simply with Iona. I'm not going over everything else. I'm talking about simply because his team did not get into the tournament. I think that's a raw deal because I think if they, it's the conference tournament champion. It's not the regular season champion. If you go with the regular season champion, they're in. But if he comes to a conference bigger, Big Ten, Maryland, he would get in no matter what. If he finished 27-3 in the Big Ten and won the Big Ten regular season and lost in the first round to Nebraska, he's still going to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. Well, see, the problem with a lot of these one bid smaller leagues is that there's no margin for error when you get to your conference tournament.
You're right.
And with Iona to lose when they did, because I want to say that was probably a first round game that they lost.
It was a quarterfinal. They lost to Ryder.
Yeah. Okay. If you don't make it to the semifinal, that's when it becomes the mercy of the committee. And I'm looking at the field, and the one that I'm still surprised at, and this helps make your point about coaching or the program and that kind of thing. Colorado State will face Michigan, which is 17-14. And I looked at that and I said, boy, this is where strength of schedule really helps a team, Michigan. Forget about the stuff with Juwan Howard for a minute, because that's going to be one of the stories in Indianapolis this week. What kind of Juwan Howard are we going to see? The Juwan Howard that we saw against Wisconsin, the fiery one, that's the one I think that Michigan kind of rallies around. The Juwan Howard that we saw in the Big Ten tournament was more docile, more calm, and his team reflected that in how they exited. I think he needs to get his edge back to an extent, be more fiery like he was last year. Be more fiery like he was a month ago or something, when you're basically fighting for the lives to get this. But strength of schedule in the Big Ten and their non-conference schedule, that really went a long way to them getting into the field just 3 games over 500. What do you think?
I agree. I was surprised they got in, because 17 wins and 14 losses, that's hard, but they have strength of schedule. They made a major move by beating Ohio State the last game of the season at Ohio State, but I thought they really laid a bad egg when they lost to Indiana in the first round of the Big Ten tournament, and they had them by 13 at halftime and ended up losing by 9 or something like that. So, I'm a fan for Juwan Howard in Michigan. It goes back to the Fab Five, but I just don't know how far this team can go. And I think also it's another example of the big conferences, like you're saying, the Big Ten, the SEC. They get the multiple bids, they get in, and I get it, I understand it, I don't agree with it, but like a school like Iona, who has been dominating the whole year and they have a bad night, a very bad night, at a very bad time, at a very wrong time, and they end up in NIT. And that's a rough one. But you know, back to your original point, I can live with the top four, the top number one seeds, the four number one seeds. Well, Gary, let me ask you this: are you happy with the number one seeds, and who do you see going how far?
I am happy with the number one seeds because I think, okay, Baylor was a little bit of a surprise, but Baylor's got cachet because they are the defending champions, and they lost to a good Kansas team. It was Kansas. Yeah, that won the Big 12. I really don't have a problem with it. Kansas, I think, is a team you really have to watch because of what they did in that tournament. And the thing too, they had to get past. And there was a team. I was trying to remember who they in the South region. I'm looking at this bracket now that they had to get by playing them something like 3 times over the last couple of weeks of the season. And I'm still trying to find it, but it was one of those teams from that league that ended up getting in because they beat Kansas once. They beat Kansas and Texas down the stretch, both of which were ranked, which got them in the field. And without my glasses, I'm having a hard time spotting them on the field in this bracket. But I have to give it. If I had to pick a team right now, I still think Gonzaga is going to end up in the final. And I don't mean end up in the final. I mean to lose a key player, to play the kind of schedule that they play, non-conference schedule, strengthens them for their league schedule. Yeah, they got beat by St. Mary's, but I still think that team is balanced. They're just very, very consistent. And the Mark Few coaching tree seems to be doing pretty well elsewhere. I mean, look at Arizona. Look at Arizona. Dead in the water. Fired their coach last spring. Probably, they're probably, facing some kind of sanctions because of this, because of the bribery scandal. But look at them. 31-3. They've won 15 of 16 games. They might be the hottest team going in. Would I be surprised to see Arizona face Gonzaga? Not at all. But Bill Self has got a squad there at Kansas, and Baylor is still Baylor. They're just a seasoned team, and they're very physical.
Well, I'll say a couple things. One, Baylor is Baylor, but they really aren't Baylor. Their body of work is based on the bodies they don't have anymore. They have injuries, so they're playing a little bit differently now. I don't know how far Baylor can go. I really don't. They're a tough team. What's the guy's name? Drew. What's the coach's name at Baylor? Scott Drew. I think his name's Scott Drew.
Yeah,
very good coach. Got a great program, but they're missing some parts this year. Arizona's tough, and also I'm gonna tell you something. You got some surprise teams in this tournament that may give some people a hard way to go. St. Mary's, who gave Gonzaga a loss, they're going to be tough. You speak of Mark Few disciples. I think the guy that coaches Boise State is a former Mark Few coach, and they're going to play Memphis in the first game, and that's going to be a hard game for Penny Hardaway in Memphis because it's going to be 2 contrasting styles, and whoever wins that game, guess who they get next? Gonzaga. I'm going to tell you something else. Illinois, sitting on a number 4 seed, they got a terrible matchup against Chattanooga. Chattanooga is big, physical, and they got a lot of kids who are juniors and seniors on that team. So that's going to be a hard matchup. I'm looking forward to this, Gary. I'm really excited about it. I think we would be remiss. I know we got to move on to our next subject, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't just take a couple seconds. Now, we're going to have to do a longer time next time, but just say a little bit about the women's bracket, because that's going to be be a tough bracket as well, too. I'm going to say it right now. I know Notre Dame can't win the women's bracket, so I'm not going to make any ostentatious picks and say Notre Dame's going to win the women's tournament this year. I won't say that. So
don't but don't underestimate them either. I mean, honestly, because their biggest problem this year has just been manpower. I mean, they just not been always healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Blown out at home by Louisville. They got blown out twice by Louisville, but at home, that game, I was really surprised. That was the game they were down like 43-4 at home by halftime, before halftime, which nobody saw coming. And I think a lot of it was just Louisville was making shots. I mean, Louisville hit like seven. They started off 7 of 7 from 3-point range. What I'm saying about Notre Dame is that you haven't really seen a full complement of players at Notre Dame because of, just because of health. And for them to get into the tournament, for them to get that kind of record, to be playing with sometimes as few as 6 players, that's impressive to me. But I'm going to say it like this: I still like Stanford. I love South Carolina, but I really love Stanford to repeat, because they just find a way to get whatever they got out of everybody they got there. They're just a very deep, solid roster. And Tara Vandiver is she's one of the best coaches out there for a reason, because she gets it done with whoever. Nobody expected them to win last year when they played something like they played on the road for like a month or something, for a number of different reasons, most of which are COVID. To do that, and that just set them up for that bubble situation.
Well, you're going to go with Stanford, and I'm going to go with Coach Dawn Staley and the South Carolina team. I think they're going to get it done this year. I think they're on a mission right now. I think them losing to Kentucky in the SEC final has motivated them and has given Coach Staley something to talk about in practice. And I'm looking forward to a wonderful women's bracket. Our local team, Maryland, we'll see how far they can go. They will not win a national championship, but we'll see how far they can go as a number 4 seed. Matter of fact, the unfortunate thing I see with them, if they get through their first quad, guess who they run into next, Gary? The Stanford Cardinal. So I think it will be over for them. They'll win their first 2, but I don't think they'll go further than that.
No. Yeah, you're right. All right, John, let's move on to NFL, another league that created a whole lot of news since we last met. And let's go back to yesterday. Tom Brady. I thought it was a joke when I first saw this, but he's back. And I mean, what was that? The 40-day retirement or something like that. I think my colleague Tom Lavero wrote that his retirement lasted as long as the entire run of The Honeymooners, which was 39 episodes.
Well, he's back. I think maybe him coming back is probably going to help his marriage, because he probably was driving his wife crazy at the house. They probably were getting on each other's nerves, him being home all the time. So, but all jokes aside, I think he when he left, maybe he left, Gary, and he felt like how it happened with information being put out there for him before he was ready to say it. Maybe that forced him into a position where he thought he had to go ahead and retire. I don't know. I can't think for Tom Brady. But I will say, good to see him back. But I'll also say, be careful, because, yes, he is one of the best. Yes, he is still a very good quarterback. But old man time will snatch you down at any time when you least expect it. And he will be, I guess, 46 this season? Is that the correct age, Gary?
Yeah, I think, 46. Yeah.
At any moment, you may start to deteriorate. I'm not saying this for Tom Brady. I'm not hoping this for Tom Brady. I mean, for me, he's always going to be a New England Patriot. That means I'm always going to love the guy. I want him, want nothing but the best for him. But we'll see what's going to happen. I don't know. One of the things they did last year with Tampa Bay, Gary, I don't know if they'll be able to do this year. They basically had their whole team re-sign again to make another run. I don't know from a salary cap situation if they can do the same thing. I know one of the players that he really wants to get back is his center. I think his center will come back now. And that's very important to any quarterback to have a connection.
Is that the one who retired, or was that the left tackle? I'm trying to remember which lineman retired.
The center is getting ready to go into free agency. I think the left tackle, or it was another offensive lineman who retired. But the center was going into free agency. You got a running back, Leonard Fournette, that's going into free agency. There is some thought now that some of these guys may come back at a discount. What Brady used to do in New England, he would take less money in order to get other people signed. Is this going to be the case now? I don't know. Chris Godwin was franchise tagged, if I'm not mistaken. You still have Evans out there. So you got to see what players are going to be signed and which ones you're going to bring in and see what's going to happen. I'll tell you this, though. They will be a good team. They will be a competitive team. Whether they make a Super Bowl run or not, a whole nother story. And like I said, I wish nothing but the best for Tom Brady. Y'all hear what I'm saying? But when you get to that age, old man age can snatch you at any time.
Yep. And since you said that, John, I think about it this way, and I look at Ben Roethlisberger. When you get to a certain age and a certain stage of your career, the question becomes, do you leave too soon or leave too late? I mean, do you leave a year too soon or a year too late? I think it's pretty clear Ben Roethlisberger left a year too late. That's what I worry about with Brady, because the Bucs, I think they were really prepared to move on and start the next chapter. And, he's back. And God bless him, because I do think when seeing him sit there on the bench and losing that game, I kept thinking he's not done yet. He's not done yet. But at the same time, I'm thinking maybe he looked tired, he looked beaten, and maybe that was going to be the picture, sadly, that we remember him by. I don't think he wanted it like that. And everything you said, I agree with, in terms of like how his retirement leaked out and such. And maybe he was driving Giselle crazy, or I guess that's her name. I hope I got his wife's name.
Hey, Gary, all I got to say to you is this. Mm-hmm. I use me as an example. You know my wife. Could you imagine me being home every day with her 7 days a week, 24 hours a day? I would drive her nuts.
She would find a job for you.
And that's what I'm saying,
And you might find a job for her too at the same token.
Hey, but here's a question I'll ask you, Gary. Mm-hmm. Any sport now, any sport. Name me a pro athlete who retired on top of his game or her game. I can only name two. Jim Brown, Barry Sanders.
Yeah.
And my point is, you talk about knowing if you're leaving too soon or too late. Most athletes stay around until it's too late. Ali, Joe Louis, Johnny Unitas, Joe Namath. The list goes on.
I have an answer, though. I do have one answer. Ray Lewis went out on top.
Ray Lewis went out on top. I'll give you that. That's three.
Yeah. But to your point, that list is very, very short.
Yeah. And it's the competitive spirit that athletes have, that they think they have another day. They think they think they can still get it done. And that's what keeps them going. It keeps their motor going, and they keep playing. And they end up staying around a little bit too long. And we don't want to see that for any athlete. Never. But most of the time, that's what happens.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go through some rapid fire points, because our time is running out. But Aaron Rodgers going back to Green Bay. We talked about that last week, and it happened. And good for Green Bay, because it basically gives them one more year, and I think it gives them a chance to really probably retain Devontae. What do you think, Devontae Adams?
Yeah, I was wrong. I was wrong about Aaron Rodgers playing his last game in Green Bay. He's coming back. I'm happy for him. I'm happy for you too, Gary, because that means the Packers are still in the thick of things. Devontae Adams, I think him and Rodgers talked about it because he's franchise tagged at $18 million as opposed to being free and going out there and getting $30 million. I think this is something they talked about. So I think Green Bay is in good shape for the next 3 to 4 years, unless Aaron Rodgers gets hurt. But you also need to think about trading Jordan Love. You need, because the longer he stays there not playing, his value goes down.
Exactly. Okay. Carson Wentz traded to Washington, good or bad?
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to laugh about that, but
What? Hey, laughing's better than crying, dog. Or cursing.
Well, that's a big question mark. That's an enigma. I don't know how it's going to work out. I'll give you an example of how crazy this situation is. They just traded for him last week, and on talk radio today, they're already talking about how to work a trade out for him to go to the Texans for Deshaun Watson. That's how I don't, I've heard something that really makes sense to me. Carson Wentz may be a 1-year thing for the Commanders just to get through this year to look for a new quarterback next year. So
yeah, I've heard that too.
And Gary, let me also say this, and maybe because I'm a big fan of his, if it's a fair competition, I think Heineken can beat Wentz out in training camp for the number 1 slot.
Yeah,
that says a lot about Wentz right there.
Yeah, I'm kind of still Team Heineke right now. I think there's still some upside with him. The problem with Washington in general is that the quarterback position has been a bum of the month club, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, I really liked when Fitzpatrick was there, but he's been what's the word? Unavailable, for lack of a better word.
He played with a quarter. He played a quarter.
The first quarter of the first game, and we haven't seen him since. He's probably on a milk carton somewhere, or a post office wall, and people still go to post offices to see it. Wow. But I just feel like right now, beggars can't be choosers, and just about any named quarterback, even Carson Wentz, is an upgrade, at least for a little bit.
We'll see, man. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Quickly, Russell Wilson in Denver. How do you think that works out?
I think it works out for Denver. I know some people think Russell Wilson is shot, but I think playing with Hackett, he's a good offensive mind. He's going to be able to bring the best out of Russell Wilson, and they have a very decent defense that's going to help him a great deal.
Yeah. Amari Cooper, goes to Cleveland, which I'm sure probably hurts John Pitt really, really, really bad. But
I think
how do you think that shakes out?
You spoke of a milk carton a couple minutes ago. I think you need to put Amari Cooper on a milk carton, because you won't be able to find him in Cleveland.
Yep, I agree. I'm the ship, the train, the boat has left on Cleveland for me, because they forget all this stuff about, they're an up and coming team. They say that every year. They look good for maybe 8, 9, 10 games or something like that, and then they become Cleveland again. And I really hate to say that, because they've got some great young talent, but Baker Mayfield ain't it. And now he's hurt. He's brittle. A good move for Cleveland, I guess, in a sense of, you think you can still get something out of them. But again, what are you going to get out of their quarterback? What are you going to get out of Mayfield? Is he healthy? Is he more hurt rather than he's letting on? And I just, that's one, it's just going to be curious. All right, finally, Deshaun Watson, where does he land?
I've heard New Orleans, and I can't remember the other, Carolina, New Orleans or Carolina, but
I've heard San Francisco too.
But there's a bigger question that has to be answered. he was cleared of the criminal aspect of what these allegations, but there's still a civil piece. But there's even another piece, the NFL. If you get Deshaun Watson, how many games is the NFL going to sit him out? That's a question, and you got to also consider that, because Roger Goodell, even as the legal system has made their statement, the NFL is going to make their own statement as well, and he's going to face some suspension. I just don't know how many games he will face.
Yeah. The NFL security has a reputation for being very thorough. I'm not going to say that they follow the legal system in terms of some of their decisions, but the penalty that they give them, I mean, they have to figure out that balance between making it stick. If there's anything to what they found, with the grand jury. The grand jury decided there wasn't enough evidence. That might not be enough for the NFL, which can basically mete out its own discipline, which they have. But you make a good point. How many games? If they give him anything, I don't think that he would get a whole season or anything. But you just never know. I mean, for that matter, they suspended a player for a whole season just for placing a legal bet. Unfortunately, involved the team he was playing for, but it's one of those things. The NFL, they're judge, jury, and executioner at the end of the day.
Yeah, very good points, Gary.
Yeah, well, we've run out of time. I mean, there's so much more we could talk about. Just talking about college basketball and the NFL is tied up our time, and we're going to have to table some things until next week. Or until next time, which could be sooner than a week. But it's been fun. We didn't even get to picks. Maybe we can talk about that. Maybe me and John Pitt will fill out our brackets and we can discuss that. Maybe post them online. But watch us on Facebook. Tell your friends. Tell your family. YouTube. We're everywhere. We can be found, and we'll always have something to say, and we'll be back next time, John.
Hey, like always, Gary, it's another fast-paced show. I really enjoyed it, like always. It's great. You all have another great week. Enjoy sports, have fun, and we'll see you next week.